Here we're going to take a look at customer transactions in Sage 50. We're going to take a look at exploring a sample company, and we will go into Bellwether Garden Supply. Now typically, customer and sales transactions are the transactions that happen the most on a day-to-day basis. And so whenever you open any company, usually the customers and sales navigation window is going to open first because that's where you're going to go the most number of times. So here we're just going to go through some of these buttons and talk about what goes in and how we put things in. So if I take a look at customers, you can view and edit the customers that are in there, and we can choose one. And we'll see that just like with the vendors and other things, there is a customer ID that has to be put in. Now that can be a numerical ID. It can just be the first name of the customer, the vendor, whatever. What Bellwether Garden Supply does is they have their ID is all in capital letters, and it's basically the first name. So, but if your company is different, you can decide how you want the customer ID to be set up, and you can set it up like that. Then comes the name of the customer, their information, phone numbers, emails, etc. And we have down here customizable fields. These are 5 different things that Sage allows you to add. So Bellwether Garden Supply chose to add a sales contact, whether or not this customer wants lawn care service, whether they want a monthly service, whether they want a quarterly mailing to be sent out, and how did they find out about us? How were they referred to us? So that we can know where to spend our advertising dollars. So these are the questions we set up as customizable fields in Bellwether Garden Supply. A different company can set up a different 5 questions. Okay. Contacts is just some more general information about the contacts and various shipping addresses versus their mailing address, etc. Here shows the history, and so March so far this year, they've done $129.97 with us. Last month they did $5,426.94 with us. Okay. If this was a new customer that we were adding, we would go on customer beginning balance, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The sales info, this is an important thing. We have to say which sales account is it going to go into whenever Aldred Builders buys something for us. Where does it go? And so this Bellwether Garden is saying it goes into regular sales. Okay. If there is a different kind of revenue account that it would go into, then we would put that account instead. If Aldred buys something for us that is not a sale of a retail item, so it's something separate and needs to go into a separate account, then we can override that one particular invoice. This is just setting up the default so that whenever Aldred buys something from us, it's generally going to be assumed that it's going to go into this sales account number 40,000. Here we can put if we need to ship the things to us and what the pricing level is, and we'll talk more about that when we get into inventory, which is the next section. Here's payment and credit, and here we want to make sure that the terms are what they should be. So it's saying here to use the default terms, and they are listed below. So this is just like the vendor section. And so the net is due in 30 days. We have a discount in 10 days, and that discount would be 2%. Now, if I wanted to change that for just Aldred, I could set up customizable terms just for that particular customer. If I want to start a new customer, I would click on New Customer. I would put in my ID, the name of that customer. So if I want to say ABC Company, I would put that in. I would, now Bellwether Garden Supply has different customer types. Land is a landscaping and land services. This prospect means this is not actually a customer, this is a prospect, and we're trying to get this as a customer, okay? And retail means this is a customer who buys things from our store, as opposed to services, landscaping type services. So we'll say that ABC Company is a retail customer, okay? We could put in their contacts. And when we get to their history, we'll come back to this in a minute. The sales info, we'll go with the 40,000, but we could also do other income, say, which is 41,000 if they only purchased some weird things. But since they're a retail customer, they're going to be buying our inventory that we have for sale. That would mean that they're in normal sales. Okay? We're going to leave them as the same default terms, and let's go back to history. Now we're going to go into the customer beginning balance, and it's going to say, do you want to save the information that you have so far? And we say yes. And it's going to say, well, what invoice number is it? And we would put that invoice number in, whatever it was, and the date. If there's a purchase order that was attached to that invoice, we could put that in there. If there is no purchase order, we would just go on to the amount. And then it wants to know what account is this going to go into, accounts receivable, and yes, it is. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and say save. You do have to make sure that your accounts receivable in your general ledger includes this $100, because this is not putting it in there. This is just putting it on the customer ledger for ABC Company. It did not add it. We didn't have a general journal entry or some other something. So you're going to have to make sure, if it wasn't already done in the past, that it needs to go into the general ledger under accounts receivable. Otherwise, my customer ledger is not going to equal my general ledger. Jobs is something we'll talk about toward the end of the semester, so we're going to leave that right now. We're going to go on to sales invoices. Now, for your project, you will not have quotes or sales orders. So we can give a quote to a customer, and then they have a month or whatever. If they buy that thing within that time period that the quote is good for, then we have to live up to that quote, even if we've raised our prices during the meantime. Okay? So we can give a quote, but that's not actually involving anything being debited or credited. It's just giving the customer a quote, but we can do that on Peachtree. Okay? We can move down here to sales order. This is where the customer has officially ordered the thing. from us. And so they might have gotten a quote first and then they convert that to a sales order. Or they might not have gotten a quote, but they just call in an order and we're going to set that up on a sales order. This is very similar to the purchase orders that we did on the vendor side. That's when we're purchasing something, we want to order something on a purchase order, and we're going to purchase it on account, then we would have that purchase order. If a customer is sending us a purchase order, they are calling it a purchase order on their end because they're the one purchasing. We're the one selling, so on our end, we call it a sales order. It's the same document. They may send us something that says purchase order on it, but if they're the buyer and we're the seller, then we're going to call it a sales order. And we could put that sales order information in here under this button. Now for your projects, you're not going to have quotes or sales order. We're going to sell stuff, and as soon as we ship it or deliver it in whatever way, if it's on account, it's going to be under sales invoices. So I can go here and we would go to new sales invoice. Here we have to bring up the customer, so the customer already has to be set up. If you start on this and you find out, oops, I didn't set the customer up yet, then you could go down here and click on new, and that would go back into that create a new customer, and you would put all your information in. Then you would come back to this spot. Okay, so we're going to say ABC Company. Okay, and it brings up all their information. Okay, we're going to say that this was on March 20th. Okay, the due date is automatically in here as being April 19th. That's 30 days. We said that this customer is net 30, so that means 30 days from now this amount is going to be due. We must put an invoice number in, just like with the vendors, and so we'll say 9876 is our invoice number. Okay. Then we're going to go through and if there is already a sales order, this apply to sales order tab will show up, just like it did with vendors. If there is no sales order for this company, then automatically this tab will show up, apply to sales. That means they're standing right there in the store and wanting to buy something. So we'll say that they bought 3, and we choose the item, and we'll say a birdhouse kit. Okay, and that automatically brings up, it's $129.99 a piece, and it is a taxable item. So 1 means we're going to charge tax, and 2 means it's exempt. Sometimes services are exempt from tax. You have to know in your state what the situation is. So here we're going to take 3 times $129.99. That's already done for us, $389.97. And then we have to go into this sales tax here, because we know that we want to charge sales tax, but we don't know what county yet for ABC Company. So I'm going to say that they are in Cobb County. Okay, and so that calculated out the sales tax for Cobb County, Georgia, and added it to the $389, and now this customer owes us $413.37. I can click on this journal button up at the top and see that we are going to debit accounts receivable for $413.37. We're going to credit sales for $389.97. We're going to credit Cobb County sales tax payable for $780, and the state of Georgia sales tax payable for $1560. If I wanted to change either the sales account number or the accounts receivable account number, I could do that. Also notice that when we have a perpetual inventory system, every time we sell something, there is another journal entry that has to be done that calculates out the cost of the goods sold and puts that into a journal entry. And here it says to be calculated. So we can have FIFO, LIFO, or average cost on Sage 50. And Bellwether Garden Supply has already put that in. I believe they use average cost. So this is going to be calculated, and then they're going to debit cost of goods sold, which is this $50,000, and they're going to be crediting the inventory account whenever that is calculated, and we don't need to worry about it. It will calculate itself. Okay, so this invoice is now good and ready to go, and we can go ahead and press save. Okay. Now, if there was something I forgot about that invoice, I can go back to it by pressing the arrow. Here it is here, and maybe I wanted to add a service on there. So I can go a service that is not already in listed as an item in inventory. I would go straight to description and just say clean the parking lot. I don't need the unit price. Maybe that's a service that doesn't have tax on it, so I would change that to a 2. And maybe that's $100. Okay? So now they owe us $513.37 instead of $413.37. Okay? Alright, what if I want to print this? I can hit the print button, and we can just take a look at it. And here's what that invoice would look like. It would have our whatever logo we had put in and our name and address, what the invoice number is and the date, what the customer got and how much they're being charged. Here's their sales tax, and here's the total that they owe us. The terms will be on here, 2% 10, net 30. And we would give this invoice then to ABC Company. And we can email that invoice, or we can give them a hard paper copy. And we'll go ahead and save that. Alright, let's say that ABC Company is now going to pay us. Okay, so we go here to the Receive Money button, Receive Money from Customer. Okay, the ticket ID we're going to put in today's date, so we're going to pretend that this is 03/25/15. So I would put that in as the date. Under the customer ID, I would bring up ABC Company. The check reference number is the check number that if they gave us a check, what was the check number on there? So we could say 234 was the check number that they gave us. Okay? The receipt number is not really necessary unless your company actually has receipts that are pre-numbered receipts that we give to the customer, and then in that case we would put what receipt number did we give to this particular customer. Okay, the date we want to make sure is on the 25th, and the payment method we want to say check, okay, because this was check number 234 that they handed us. Down here on the bottom, just like with the vendors, it's going to show us what they owe us and what discount there is. Okay, and so they owe us not from 9876 513.37, and they owe us $100 from March 17. Okay, and so if if they're just going to pay this $513, I would just click on the pay button. It fills out this little check as if we had received it. If I look in the journal button, I can see that we're going to debit the checking account, $10,200. I'm going to, for 50310, and I'm going to debit my sales discount account for $1027. Now, if you haven't set up a sales discount account already, then you can go ahead and change this and put it, make your sales discount account and put that in there. And then we're crediting accounts receivable for the whole $513.37. Okay? Now, let's say that they are not paying the whole 503.10. Okay? Let's say that they're just paying $200 so far. Then we can go into amount paid and put in the $200. And press enter, and that'll show that we're receiving $200. Notice that the discount went away. Discounts don't happen unless the customer is going to pay the whole amount. The same thing for vendors. If we don't pay the whole amount that we owe to a vendor, we don't get any discount. You have to pay the whole amount, and then you get the 2% discount or whatever. And we can save and close on that. Now let's say we have some cash sales, okay? Some customers that weren't already set up on account in a sales invoice. They just walked in the store and they're giving us a check or cash, okay? So here we're going to go into receive money from customer. We'll put in the date. We'll say that this is 03/28. Okay? Now, we don't have a customer because these customers are customers who are buying things on account. So we're not going to bring up a customer. We're going to go right here to where it says name in gray, and we'll put in the word cash or cash sales. Okay? We can put in the reference as cash, and then usually once you use cash the first time, it brings up a box. Oh, you already used that as a reference number. Okay? So if I put in cash 03/28/15, then that will distinguish it from cash that I've received on other days. Again, I don't really need the receipt number. I'm going to put in the date, which is the 28th. This is cash and checks. You can leave it on cash or you can leave it on check. Either one is acceptable. You always want to make sure that over here where it says cash account, it says regular checking account if that's where you're going to deposit this into. If you're depositing it into some other account, then it should say whatever account that you're actually going to put this money into. Okay? Now I'm going to say how many did I get? So we'll say that's 5, and we'll say that thistle bird seed mix, the 6-pound thistle bird seed mix, we have 29 bags of bird seed mix. So we're going to say that we just sold 5 of them to somebody. They're $19.99 a piece. They are taxable. Okay. Now with cash sales, we have the sales tax information down here below. Okay, so the sales tax, I have to say what county. So this time we're going to say Cherokee County, and now it calculated out the tax for Cherokee County on this $99.95. If I pull up my journal, I see that I'm going to debit cash, the checking account, for $105.95. I'm crediting sales for the $99.95, and I'm crediting Cherokee County tax payable for $2, and crediting Georgia State sales tax payable for $4. Okay, If this is all okay, then we would just say save. What if a customer returns something? Here I'm going to go into credits and returns, new credit memo. Let's say ABC Company returned some of the bird bass. Okay? If they have any invoices already out there, this apply to invoice number tab is going to come up. If they don't have any previous invoices, then apply to sales is going to come up. Okay, so we did have an invoice with ABC Company, so I can hit that arrow, and which invoice is it? It was 9876. They had 3 bird kits. How many of them returned is in the white box. We'll just say that they just returned 1. So we would put that in there. Okay, it already knows it's $129.99. It already knows it's Cobb County tax. It calculated that, and it's going to credit their account for $137.79. We can look at the journal. It's going to credit accounts receivable $137.79. It's going to debit. In this case, it's showing up as being debit to sales. Okay, and so if we have a sales returns and allowances account, that's the account that we would want. Here we do, sales returns and allowances, so we would change that to sales returns and allowance for the $129.99. Here's the Cobb County sales tax payable that we now don't have to pay, and the Georgia State sales tax that we're also decreasing that we don't have to pay. And we're going to go ahead and save that. Okay, let's take a look at some reports. So if I take a look at the sales journal, okay, here is on March 20th, shows our sales. It shows what accounts are being debited and credited, okay, and a little bit about them. Okay, the invoice number was 9876. Okay, so every sale on account that we did a sales invoice for is going to show up in this sales journal. You can print this out, the sales journal, or you could save it as a PDF for your project. There is a cash receipts journal that you're going to have to do for your project, and this shows all the cash receipts that we received. Here's the cash sales. Notice that there were not on the sales journal because that's only sales on account goes on the sales journal. The cash sales goes on the cash receipts journal. Okay, along with this check that we received from ABC Company on invoice 9876, the $200. And here's the cash sale that we had along with its information, what is being debited and what's being credited. Again, I can print this out or save it as a PDF. Customer ledgers shows each customer and all the activity for that month in that customer. So here is ABC Company. Okay, they had $100 before, and now we have $137.79 that was paid. $513.37. The $137.79 was the credit memo that we did. and 5/13/37 is the invoice. So between the invoice and that credit memo, we have $475.58 they still owe us on that invoice. Here it shows that they paid us $200 so far, so they still owe us at the end of the month $275.58. Now, when I'm looking at this, I see that my credit memo, where they returned that one bird kit, is listed at being at March 15th, but they didn't even buy it in the first place till March 20th. Obviously, I did not put in the correct date. So I can see that I want to fix that. So I'm going to click on that and highlight it and then double click on it. That brings up my original credit memo. Okay, so now I want to make sure that the date is something after the 20th when they originally bought it. They're going to return it at some later date, so we'll say the 23rd. We also need a credit memo in here, which usually is CM and then the original invoice number, which was 9876. Okay, and so now I can go ahead and save that. Okay, and notice it immediately changed it on our customer ledger. Now I can see that the invoice was 5/13/37, and there's the credit memo, CM 9876, with the 137.79 taken off. And then finally their payment, which came a few days later, of $200, and that was applied. They still owe us $275. Again, you can print this out or you can save it as a PDF. This ends part 2. Other than the fact that you're going to want to go into the general ledger, get the trial balance, and take a look at your accounts receivable account, which is right here. And you're going to want to compare that total to the total of the customer ledger report that you got up and make sure that they match. If they don't match, usually it's a problem that deals with beginning balances. When you put in a new customer and you put in a previous beginning balance that they owed us. That's when, and you haven't gone and done anything with this, then you're going to get that being different.